Welcome, builders, to another episode of How Would You Build It? We've got a guest again. Everyone's still reeling from a really intense rugby game. Priaash, thank you very much for joining. How are you doing today?
No, awesome. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Renier. Thanks for having us. I'm
Yeah,
doing excellent,
that's
even on a
good.
Monday.
Even on a Monday and a very intense Monday. Renier, did you survive?
Yes, barely. Yeah, close game last night against France, but yeah,
Yeah.
looking forward to the semi-finals.
Yeah, brilliant. So am I, and I'm looking forward to our conversation because it's something as a product manager we love to talk about. A lot of companies don't seem to actually have their data in place, or maybe using it incorrectly or having the wrong sort of mindset around it. So Priaash, you've started the awareness company. You're 5 years old. Tell us about it and kind of where the inspiration around realizing that I could start a business in big data and make a difference in the world.
Yeah, 100%, Bobby. So, a little preamble into how we got into the data world. So, the awareness company was started by myself, Shazia, and Estelle, and we worked at an R&D institute in South Africa, the CSIR, and we worked in the defense and security space. And we had an opportunity to work a range of very cool, interesting, innovative, bleeding edge tech projects. And that's where we got exposed to the world of data and what we call situational awareness and how you use that. And working in a lot of those projects, border control and anti-rhino poaching, and sort of kind of switched our minds a little bit as, hey, you can use data in your lab and test out stuff all you want, but when you see it out in the real world, then something changes. And really that's what gave us the boost, and we like constructed this vision in our minds like 10 years ago, and we said, okay, data can actually play a real world impact role with that purpose. And that's actually how we started the company.
Yeah, that's great. From my background, when we build products, we're always looking at it from a point like, how can we better improve our company, our business? How can we improve our metrics? And it's normally like your e-commerce kind of mindset. It's like more, 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 more. Renier, you want to talk about data being the gold or not the gold? What is your viewpoint? Bring it up.
No, well, I'll get there. I just love what Priya said about coming out of the CSIR in a deep research space. And I love the story because I think there's so much more opportunities like that for people that have come from a research background that are really subject matter experts and have really, to a large degree, played around with a specific concept to really get different angles of it and then going, okay, but let's start making this commercially viable. You know, in Israel, that everybody does military service, but not traditional military service. Like when you finish school, you know, we think you go to military training. They also do that, but some people go to cyber warfare. Some people go to like these imagery divisions within the army, and a lot out of there, they start a lot of companies, right? So someone studies engineering, they go into the military in Israel for 3-4 years. They work on spectral imaging, and they go, you know what, we can really use what I've learned here to do satellite imagery for agriculture. And then launched a startup, and the Startup Nation was a book about Israel, speaks a lot about this, like how they translate what they learn through this service to the country into great startup and technological advanced startups. And I love that. So firstly, I love some people coming from the CSIR side into business, which is one of the first reasons why I find this conversation interesting. But the second one is I've been in tech in a long time, and I think about 15 years ago, I heard for the first time some consultant going, data is the new gold, or data is the new oil, and we need to look data. And then we'd all jump on that bandwagon and go, let's get some data. And then you get data, and you get in a meeting and everybody is like, so we have data. And it's this massive so what moments. Like, okay, well, what do we do with data, right? And what I loved when I saw the presentation of the awareness company is people actually answering the so what question, going, cool, we've got a lot of data, but not only data, we actually go and get data to create a picture of something that is useful. And I think that's what's really interesting. And I think after all these years of people going, data is gold, perhaps data isn't gold, it's the application of it that could turn into gold. So maybe data is the mining equipment, where the actual application, the value that one derives through application, is actually the gold that gets mined from it. So yeah, Priyash, what did you say to that?
Yeah, firstly, I completely agree. So this whole slogan about data is the new oil. I mean, recently I read a few Forbes articles on it, and it's been written, and it's about how you take something. Do you take it on face value, like literally? And then people have written articles saying it's not the new oil, it's a different commodity. There's commercialization is different, how you use it. But then it's the sort of the analogy of it. And I think you spot on. I've been having a saying recently that data is worthless if you can't take it and action it into the business. And here's a few stats that we've been putting together. Between like 60 and 80% of data in a business is dark, meaning it's not actually being utilized for operational growth, for awareness within the company. And here's another stark stat. Around 60% of executives are not comfortable using their own data tools. This should tell you something as well. So
Wow.
it's not really about data being the new oil. It's about the same thing that's been happening before. It's about the time it can save you. And then if you can find an actionable output of it in a continuous space. And that's the differentiation for us that we're trying to push. It's that mentality of, okay, your output of data is a report, and that's it. And when you build it into your business as not this nice to have or side thing, then I think you're going to get the benefit. Otherwise, and we've seen it, people spend a lot of money and then they're like, so what? And
Mm.
this holds true for like a smallholder farmer or a small farmer and a large enterprise and corporation. So 100% on that. Like it's that concept of how do we actually turn it into something that is useful. And
Mm.
nowadays there's AI and there's analysis tools and business intelligence and there's almost too much. But then on the actual commercial, like well-known side, there's not many tools actually. You get your traditional business intelligence tools, and then you get bespoke consultants
Mm.
that's doing it. Where's the other options?
Mm. Mm. That's super interesting. I think when I got into data and started learning and everything, the big thing that stood out for me was data is useless until you turn it into information. So it's the refining of the data that actually, like you said, your reports or whatever it is, to actually utilize that into something useful. Like you said, turning it into an outcome or telling a story or kind of pushing in the next kind of narrative. What I'm interested in is how do you base your business around proving that if those stats are so like people are clearly not comfortable with data, what you're saying, and they don't know how to utilize it. So how do you convince people that you want to, you're starting a business using data?
Yeah. So this touches on sort of what we've constructed as a value proposition, like, within the awareness company. And again, this is just our view and the gaps that we saw. It's not the rule. But when you think about data as a business, what is the first thing that's coming into your mind now, Bobby? Like, what tools are popping up in your mind, and what's the traditional way of people working with data? And like, usually the answers are, okay, BI tools, your Tableau, your Power BI, things like that. And then and spreadsheets, all tools which are great. And the other way is, okay, I have a very niche data problem and I need someone to solve this problem for it. So we've kind of zoomed out a little bit to try to help think about how do we turn this into a business. And basically, there's three things that we've sort of come up with. One is data storytelling. So what's the most effective way that one can communicate the output and value of data? So that's the storytelling component. The second one is democratizing data. Um, Now, what that means is that part of our vision is that we want data to touch the hands of every person in an organization. Now, what that means practically is now data is for the technical guy, for the engineer, and the report is for the strategic decision makers. And that's kind of where it stops, right?
Mm.
And so by giving access to everyone means it's a value for value engagement. So even if you're the sales guy running around, what value do I get back to me and my job? and how does data actually help me? And it's not just a KPI output from some reporting tool that's going to tell me what I should do next. And so, those two things, you combine them. And then the third thing from a business perspective is, what's the commercial model to say there's data AI as a service in there? And those are the three things we've sort of combined now from a product view. So can we create a product that does those three things and then turn it into a business that then satisfies very specific use cases? So we're not trying to create like a one size fits all tool at this point in time. One day, that's our overall ambition. It must be a household name that you want to use it to create a smart home versus run a mine. But for now, like a business side, it helps to sort of narrow use cases and then go from there.
So Priaash, what I'm observing is that there's two sides to the business. The one is almost like a consulting side, but the other side is a product that goes with it. So would you say you are product and software and a service? Because a lot of South African companies say, you can't. It's a bit hard to just sell software because there's not enough clients. So you do software and a service, and then hopefully become big enough that you can tone down a bit on the service side and just sell more software.
So I absolutely love this question, and it goes back to one of the misnomers of the articulation that we provide in the market. So we actually not a consulting company at all, and we actually don't do any of that as much as possible, other than to match a business model or commercial model that usually a larger company is more comfortable with. So they might be more comfortable paying in a consultant way, but the output of what we're doing is still from the product side. So we're very product heavy. The software with a service versus the pure SaaSness. So we want pure SaaS. That's what we want. But what happens practically is that your first few customers in that sort of use case, you would then put more effort, or you will need to then use that because you're a startup. You're not building the perfect product on day one and then selling that perfect product and merging. Now, there are very, very, very few, in our opinion, pure SaaS companies, even locally.
Yeah.
And I think it's a function of time to build a pure SaaS product takes a different skill set. And how we want the Hydra, which is the name of the product, we want it to be Netflix style. You go on a website, you pick your modules, you pay by credit card. Yeah, and at the moment, so the activation and stuff like that, we hold hands a little bit there and then let them run with it in there. But spot on, with that. Just we try to say no to once-off big type of projects because that distracts you from what the product you're trying to build, and we rather shoot for the product than go in the other way.
But I also think we obviously pure SaaS, sign up your credit card, you never see or even know who that customer is. The money just comes in. We all use products like that. I mean, Gmail, the G Suite, in the Microsoft Suite, Teams, all of it, Zoom, all of it works that way. So that's kind of the way we think about it. But from a South African context, I think what the software and the service is actually a nice model, right? Because the services work that you do could really boost your cash flow, right? Because you do a bit of hours. But you get that annuity income from also licensing the product.
Yeah.
And at one point, go long enough, have enough customers that software licensing fee would cover more than your expenses. Yeah. And those boosts of all these little services that you continue to do, which are really hard to get away from, can really fund your ongoing growth to eventually get over that space of really becoming profitable on the product side. So I think it's a model that most Africans should actually think about consciously, instead of going, I'm going pure SaaS, like you cannot even speak to me in the beginning, like go to my website, sign up with your credit card. Like, I mean, that's, this is some South African founder will pull it off, but that's probably an international company. If you're building for South Africa, chances are software and the services is a very good place to start.
Yeah. It was Sam Altman said, I recently read a post on LinkedIn, and he was like, when you want to build a SaaS, you have to be counterintuitive initially and do things that don't scale while you're building that. And I think that that model that you described sort of helps you actually do that. So, if you want to build something for a smart building, and eventually the device must just be shipped there to the building, and magically they just plug it in. But initially, you got to actually go and install the device yourself to see how that actually works. And then you can charge a little
And
bit
it's
for
good
that.
for you, right?
And
It's good for you because you're getting feedback, you're seeing how it works, how customers are
Exactly.
engaging with it. So there's actually there's a lot of sense in going that route beyond actually cash flow. So you're like getting good customer feedback.
100%.
So I'm going to pivot the conversation a little bit to AI, because I'm quite curious. I mean, for me, I believe that you can only have an AI sort of element to your product if you've got your data in a good place. So how ready are we in South Africa to start AI kind of products and businesses? When you speak to other companies, corporates, whatever it is, like, what is the state of South Africa's data?
Yeah. So again, the actual known state of data, like there was a census update released recently, and I started having a looking at that and understand the numbers. And apparently we've grown by 10% in numbers since the last census, another 10 million people. The depth of the data is not what I have seen to be freely available. And when I say freely, I don't mean like for free from a cost perspective. It's hard to sort of, what's that one place that you want to just go grab that and start actually doing something useful for it. So I don't believe state of data, whether we're talking on a national side, or whether we're talking within an organization like a large enterprise. I think it's a complex, chaotic, somewhat structured kind of thing that's been happening. And how it works is you build it up over time. So you adopt a database. And then, this new technology comes in and like, oh, here's a data warehouse. Okay, cool. And I think this data warehouse is going to work for me. Let's spend, 6 months to a year pushing our data into data warehouse. And then another thing comes in, oh, there's a data lake. And now I need to, use that. So people are trying to keep up to it. But what I think is really important from an AI perspective is, let's not just rely on the data that's there. And that's why one of the things we do, we have 6 main things we do at the Winners Company. And the first one is we help an organization create data from scratch. And if you do that, then you have structured data from day one of utilizing it, which means you take away that, there's just a few more stats, like 60% of the data scientist's time is spent wrangling and cleaning the data. That's crazy. Like, I mean, think about the hours you're paying for the people or the company or whatever, and like 60% they're cleaning your data.
Yeah.
So I think to fix retrospectively is a difficult job. And I like to take a forward, whenever we get a new organization, we're like, okay, we have 2 proprietary mobile apps that will help you create data. Okay, you want to connect up your machines and other things, cool. There's IoT and the whole IoT world. We can plug in that and connect that. Oh, okay, you got some of your financial data in this financial system. Cool, we can integrate that. But as long as it all's coming into something that, is structured, then the basis to run AI models and stuff like that, can actually happen. Otherwise, you're just putting garbage in and you're going to get garbage out.
Exactly. So something I couldn't help but read is some of the use cases that you're actually using your data for, one being wildlife. I find that fascinating. Can you please tell us about that?
Yeah, so I mean, it goes back to our history, the thing that gave us that push, or really like lit our minds on fire and gave us passion. So, when we worked previously in R&D, we started working on anti-rhino poaching campaign. And believe it or not, my first trip to the Kruger National Park was for work. So I went in there for work.
Wow.
And sort of...
What a job.
No, it was awesome. It was really good. And then we looked at the people there. And then something was like strange to us. Like, why are the people there so passionate about what they're doing? Why are these people trying to save the rhino? Like, what's going on here? I'm missing something. And that's how we started getting involved in that use case, and we met amazing people along that journey. And when we started the Awareness Company, we always said, this is not just something we're passionate about. We actually believe that data and what we call situational awareness software can actually make a difference in this fight and as a whole. So, I mean, we've tried best as possible to stay in the game of wildlife and conservation going forward, and we're running some nice use cases at the moment. We have a few game parks as actual paying clients. We did a really cool project with USAID a while back where we created a very specific AI to help understand the security movements of people on the ground. And the interesting part about wildlife and conservation is that there is a huge overlap with agriculture in terms of product and use cases and features and how you utilize that. So what we started seeing is that historic experience that we had with conservation gave us a lot of hints into, oh, look, there's a piece of equipment that we used in conservation, we can use in agriculture now. And if you actually like build, and it's like how we built actually was very generic. We wanted to build it so agri can use it, conservation, security, buildings, sales teams. We built it like that. And then you start seeing the cross correlation to other use cases. But yeah, wildlife is still very dear to us. And I strongly feel like if you want to use tech and AI in those type of use cases, you need a sustainable commercial model, because it can't just be like, hey, I'm funding it and go do this cool project. There must be some sustainability to it. So yeah, no, that's wildlife.
Are you able to share some of the projects that you're working on? Like, just to give an example for the people, like how are you utilizing data in this conservation space?
Yeah, so there's multiple aspects to the conservation world that we touch on. So one is security. So, helping an area, we call it a large site, and that site could be a game park, or it could be a public park or nationality that have assets that they want to protect. And so how do you now help them now protect that assets from a data and AI side? And so practically, I'll give you two practical examples. On the security side, helping people get early warning on threats using data. So if you are looking at a 12-month history of activities, you can take that type of data, you create it, and if you start to visualize it in certain different ways against certain parameters, I'll give you an example, moon phase as an example, and cell phone signal strength. You start combining it with that and you get some unique insights out of it. Then you want to start looking forward. That's where AI starts to get really interesting. So can I take a whole bunch of data and piece it together, and can I spit out something that says, maybe I should focus on this area as an example? And I'm keeping it high level as well, but that just gives you an idea. So security is one aspect, but the other side is ecology. So like there's research scientists on the ground doing amazing research and writing a lot of academic papers in the conservation world. How do we abstract that a little high level so that others can understand it as well? So capturing things like invasive species or animal movements, weather, all of these interesting things. Now data becomes much more interesting in there. And then the third element is like the tourism element. So I mean, for conservation to practically work, there needs to be a tourism element. And like in SA, we have amazing places. Like mind-blowing. Like every time I visit a new place, I'm like, is this here? And like, why haven't I been here before? So there's a strong tourist element to this, which means a stronger link to like the commercialization and the link from a country perspective. So what data can be used to enhance the experience of tourists, or help the lodge maintain their lodges better, or provide different services. So that's just on a high level what we're looking at from in that world. Mainly more focused on the security and ecology side at the moment.
Mm-hmm. So Priaash, I mean, as a layman, how I would summarize that is there's all of these data points or things that could be data points, right? So understanding what things could be connected that results in this example in an incident could provide, takes you on this journey where you go, let's start pulling in this data, measuring this thing, analyzing that thing, looking at historical context here, and bringing all of that together and saying, okay, now let's use AI to find patterns or predict where something might happen, and using that prediction in a way to conserve and prevent an incident from occurring, right?
Yeah, 100%. So one is the basic principle on our framework for from a data side is called situational awareness. And it's essentially what you've described, but there's three parts to it. So one is, here's some data. How do I perceive it? And that could be, hey, I sighted an animal or I sighted something suspicious. Then the second step is the comprehension of it. So, oh, I actually understand what this is now. You know what? And then the third part is the projection. And projection is prediction, but it's also prescription and inference. So we don't just want to predict what's happening. You actually want to use your data now to kind of shape the outcome you want. And that's where AI gets really, really interesting and useful. It's not just, hey, I'm going to predict this is going to happen this day and I'll try to be better at response. They call it switching from reactive to proactive behavior, but 100% Renee.
Awesome. And I can imagine like there's a lot of applicability that for any kind of industry, right? I mean, any kind of factory that has to deal with incidents, any big organization that needs to manage risk, they can identify certain risks. They can start unpacking like, where can I feed data from? You kind of highlight using AI, and then start acting preventative and saying, okay, cool, let's respond or be ready to respond because we anticipating something could occur when the system tells us so. So I think the application of it is enormous, and I love the wildlife one myself, and I think it's very practical. But I can just imagine this playing a role in so many different industries.
100%, and this is where we sort of fall between a rock and a hard place. So when we started the company, the whole concept of creating a product that can service hundreds of use cases, because we saw that gap and that potential applicability in it. So potentially, yes. The concept, if we are able to productize what we're talking about here today into something that is so simple, there's nothing really stopping us in the future from deploying 1,000 use cases initially. And what we're doing now is trying to be a little bit more methodical to say, okay, let's pick a use case, refine it, build up that traction, and then build it up. But I'll spot on that. The concept of situational awareness from a productization perspective doesn't exist in our opinion yet, and that's the gap.
Yeah, it's fascinating actually. I love the way you're approaching it, thinking about the future state, and like, let's not try and figure out what's happened in the past, but let's think of the outcome that we want to achieve, and then let's use our data to move into that direction. I freaking love that. You touched on it now, but I'd love to also understand how you prioritize those use cases, because we all know that when you start getting a bit of data, a little bit of information coming through, like you used an example earlier, I would like put cell phone signals with that, and now you start unpacking the story. There's so much that can be uncovered when the information starts coming through. So how do you prioritize it? Like, how do you know that this is something we need to pursue or that somebody else needs to pursue? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So funny story, when we started the company, we created a website because that's what you must do first, they say. All the entrepreneurship 101 lessons. But anyway, we created a website. Yeah. We created a website, and we had like 12 different blocks there. Cyber, logistics, conservation, agriculture, whole bunch of stuff. And we were a bit wide-eyed in that. And then so as you start talking to more people, more founders, you go talk to the market. I like to think of the market as this thing that you're communicating with all the time. Then you start to get your pull. And we still in startup phase. We chasing the product market fit aspect, and we're keeping our ears open with the data we're receiving from the market. And how we've narrowed ourselves is, at the moment, we have three key, call it thematic areas. And one is sustainability, and that's where the agriculture and conservation stuff falls in. The second one is security, so that's physical security, sites, high value assets. And the third one is people efficiency, human performance, as we call it. Anyone who's moving around or anyone who's using some equipment or machine. Now, the three of those are intrinsically linked in that, think if you want to create a more sustainable planet, you need food security, you want to conserve your heritage and your assets, and you want to protect your national infrastructure, essentially. And then on top of that, you want to secure all of that. And then how do you actually do that is by increasing human performance of the people working in those areas. So they intrinsically interlinked like that. And that's how we've sort of narrowed our focus in there. And what we envision is keeping those three areas and then expanding the individual use cases that we can then deploy to at the moment. But how we got to that stage was, market research, understanding the market size for each of those, very startup-y, more business decision making there, that sort of couples to our passions as well. Because, what do we actually want to do? What excites us as founders? And, and then that's the balance between it. And so the more data we keep getting and the more people we speak to, that sort of helps us, okay, which use case should we focus on now versus which one should we do next year versus, the following on. It's a continuous thing, I would say.
So Priaash, if someone's listening to this and they go, cool, they want to get into AI, but they, it looks like a mountain in front of them because they'll never be Sam Altman. Let's be honest, there's only one Sam Altman. And we've had Elon Musk before come out of South Africa, so I'm not shooting down some South African founders and saying they can't, be the next Sam Altman. But for the vast majority of South African founders, they see this AI thing coming, and they know they somehow need to start laying in the space, incorporate into their products. How do they go about this? Like, where's a good place to start? How should they think about it? What is something practical that they can do, or someone they should engage with, or book they should read, or how would you advise them to go about this?
So the one thing to understand is, what is the fundamental definition of AI? Right? And that really helps you answer the question of what direction should I take or how should I go to. And at its true heart, it's a compilation of algorithms and mathematical things that are constructed together that helps you. The driver for that is data, that's coming in, and then you're running everything on there. If you think about it that way, then it makes it a little bit easier for me to start to have a direction. Like, okay, I need to know some math if I want to go that way. But okay, I'm not so inclined to math, but I still want to get into AI. Okay, there's tools nowadays that you can start learning. And the best way, in my opinion, I'm a doer. That's my personality. So if you want to learn something, go do something. Go build a little AI model. There is a ton of tutorials, videos. My favorite guy to sort of watch his stuff is a guy called Andrew NG. And I'm pronouncing his surname wrong, but Andrew NG, like, he's published his entire Stanford sort of computer science AI lectures. Like, there's about 14 of them. It's on YouTube. And I mean, this is free. That stuff is there. He's also published some awesome Udemy or Coursera, one of those two courses, also for free. And then, just pick a programming language and, start to learn it a little bit. Python's the go-to AI one, but you can do it in whatever you're comfortable with, and just start small and get into it. The thing about like the brilliant guys like Sam Altman, they also just started somewhere. And I think they're super brilliant. But I also think that what I've seen in SA is super brilliance as well. And the only thing that is differentiating us from them is a few factors of opportunity, a timing, and ambition. Because what happens is you kind of box yourself. You're like, okay, I'm in SA now. How can I create something of the value and scale that those guys are doing? Microsoft invested $10 billion in those guys. I mean, how am I going to compete with that? But I actually think if we have more ambitious founders saying, we can actually create something on that scale, I think we'll get more. And it might be just me. I'm very optimistic, but I really think we can do it.
Yeah. The thing is, for me, like I asked the question earlier about what is the state of South Africa's data? And I say that because I believe that there is a massive opportunity in it. You listen to anything American or anything overseas, and they've got data points everywhere for everything. Just talk market analysis. They can tell you everything. They've just got data points for days. We can't even keep our Stats South Africa going. I mean, it's like we don't even know what's happening in the informal economy. We've been talking about that on the podcast as well. So I just find it so interesting. I feel like there's so much opportunity available. What are your thoughts?
No, there's super opportunity here. And it's on not just the AI side, but it's the data creation side, as you say. So like, I mean, one of the ways we're trying to fill that gap, that data, like how do we get more quality data in the country? So when you look at our mobile application, it's called Hydra. It actually looks very similar to Twitter. And we've done it for a reason. Now, why must I create data using something that looks like a sheet or a ERP or a CRM type of system? That's not really joyful, is that? But if I can make it look like a social media application that makes it feel and sort of feels nice, and I want to go to it and hey, let me create some data, then I think we have that opportunity. And the other thing about the creation, what creation does, if you allow everyone to create data in an organization, they start getting upskilled. So you might initially create something, an invasive species, a plant, and you won't really know what it looks like. But now you're taking a picture, you're recording its name, you're looking at the fields. And what happens with data, and this is the beautiful thing, you actually start upskilling yourself, and then in your mind, you start making patterns of it. And then you're like, hey, owner of the product, can you make this pattern here? Because I see it in my mind. You know, we often think AI and like data is going to replace people. And, you know, we are strong believers of human intelligence. So all data and AI is doing is just making us better if we allow it to.
Incredible. René, any last takeaways or questions before we wrap it up?
No, it was a really engaging conversation, Priaash, and I'm looking forward to see what you guys are building in the future. You're definitely pioneering in the South African side, so some really fascinating stuff. Thanks so much for sharing.
I actually really like the concept that you just said around, making it a social media. Like that's how, we are used to consuming information at the moment, right? It's a timeline, it's whatever it is. And I think making it look consumable, so making it easy to consume as a person, I think that's interesting. And now starting to share interesting things to people, and then that it's like spark the curiosity, because that's what data does, right? That's the information coming through. It spark, and then the next minute, who knows what you can create. So that's for me one of my takeaways. Really cool. Definitely going to be paying attention. Thank you for joining, Priaash.
No, awesome. Thanks for having us. I really appreciate it.